Good evening and welcome to the 2017-2018 Supper Club videos. We are beginning our third year of doing Supper Club videos together. We hear that there are probably 325 or 350 of you out there in Montview for maybe the 8th, 9th, or 10th year. We've heard different numbers of how long this has been going on. So congratulations. Supper clubs, some of you have been together for a number of years and have stayed together. Some of you are new to one another and are just getting to know each other. Either way, the point really about supper clubs is to make connection and community and friendships at Montview. So we encourage them to...
Sure. Yeah, it's not just, think about it as not just a chance to talk about the kids and where you went on vacation and those kind of things, but this is really a chance to go deeper. And so we encourage you to do what we call check-in. And so some of you guys know this drill and you do this, and that's great. But we just thought we'd give you a little primer again on what this means. So just each person gets a chance to go around and speak into the circle how they're doing. So it's a little less about here's what I've been doing and a little more about how I'm doing with what's been going on in my life, how I'm feeling, how I'm reflecting on it, where I'm struggling. And as you're listening, keep in mind you don't have to fix them. You don't have to offer advice.
In fact, better not to talk.
Exactly.
And let each person talk.
Just trust that holding that in the sacredness of sharing is enough. There's healing that comes from that. And often if something comes up for you, that's a great sign that something's coming up for you that you can explore, but avoid that temptation to
I think we're freaking them out because it sounds heavy, but
heavy.
it's not heavy.
Enjoy. It's
enjoy
a great piece
each
of
other.
it. Fair enough.
Yeah.
And have fun too. Yeah, that's good.
And so we have a theme. We have a theme this year. We have a theme every year. 2 years ago we did the 7 deadly sins.
Sure.
That was pretty fun. And last year we did Speaking of Faith, different theological words that are kind of loaded and that we unpacked. Heard some good things about that. Good. And this year our theme is A Prophetic Faith, Living Boldly in Uncertain Times. And each month our goal is to unpack or to expose a new prophet. A prophet that isn't a traditional prophet necessarily, historical figure or contemporary figure. So we're going to try that this year.
And this one's that's our church theme too. So it's the larger theme, not just for supper clubs, but for the whole church. And we got thinking about the world that we live in right now, the uncertainty, the violence in the world, and particularly the political scene in our own country and the anxiety that's creating, the anger, the fear, that it was what we need when we were thinking about the church theme. What do we need to be lifting up right now? And we all think we need church, to churches like Montview, to be a place not only of kind of refuge from the storm, of that constant barrage, true sanctuary, but also a place that we can talk about these things, be brave in discussing some difficult issues. And the prophets from our Christian tradition are the ones who would speak that honest but hard word, and so that's where this is all grounded in. And so today we're going to do kind of an intro, right? Just kind of what's a prophet?
And that makes me realize or think about that. What better place to take on a hard subject in a community of trust, and you keep coming back together and you break bread together and you develop friendships, but we talk about real substantive things.
Exactly.
So this is good.
Today, this one will just kind of unpack, an overview. What is a prophet? Where are we grounding this? And kind of set us up for the future months. Right? So
we're going to add a video at the end, a little video clip of a young poet, a slam poet, I think. And it's very compelling, very challenging, and we hope that you will use her poem.
And some of them heard it. If you came to the
Adult Ed Forum.
Yeah, on the first week back, you know this, you know what's coming. But it's worth seeing again because it's really great.
Yep. So the prophetic tradition there are models that are biblical prophets throughout the Hebrew Scriptures, and then, of course, in the New Testament, Jesus and John the Baptist and Mary and Anna and Simeon. There are prophets in the Christian Scriptures as well that give us an example of who speaks for God and what kind of mouthpiece these characters are for God, speaking into the system that we swim around in. And these mouthpieces often will bring, as we've said, a hard word, usually a word that challenges us and maybe has a sting to it. It's challenges and makes us uncomfortable, but we know somewhere deep down in our guts that it's a true word.
It was interesting when we first started to kind of test run this idea of a prophetic faith, that a lot of folks went, wait, don't
know what that means.
A prophet, is this the guy with the pointy hat and the magic, telling the future?
Oh, future telling.
All that kind of, that side of what we think of, something out of Harry Potter or something. And a prophet for us is not those things. We're going to ground it in our Old Testament understanding of the prophets there, which gets to these things that Clover, you're mentioning, of someone who speaks a hard word into the system, but it's going to ring true in some way, and it's got some challenges for us, I think. So to speak a hard word is one thing, but and to be that, to say that it comes from God is dangerous in a lot of ways. And how do we know when we're speaking
boldly?
Right. So a lot of times our own ego can get in there. I guess the point I'm trying to get at, so many times our ego gets in the way of that, and we really just want our opinion heard, and our perspective, and we haven't grounded ourselves in a deep listening for God. That's got to happen before we're going to be able to speak that word, or else we can do even worse damage in some ways, because now we're under the cover, so to speak, of being prophetic. I'm just being prophetic, right? I'm just speaking truth to you.
So a corrective is to measure what we're saying, that it comes from a place of love. It really, if it's God's word, it's a place of love, not judgment and anger, and a place of hope. That there's always hope and love mingled in a prophetic word. Even though it is uncomfortable, it's not judgment per se. And so I think we've made that mistake with thinking about
You've got to keep,
prophets.
and we're going to keep doing that, right? Especially as we get in touch with our own prophetic voice. We're not going to be perfect at it, because our egos are going to slip in there and trip us up sometimes. So that's a big piece of that. And then there's also one more thing to add in terms of characteristics of a prophet is what's sometimes called a preferential option for the poor. So a prophet is less interested in telling a hard word about for themselves, but to protect those who maybe don't have, they're not being heard.
So it's not an excuse to confront someone with a personal grievance.
Exactly. Yes, you're really often speaking on behalf of others, and particularly the poor, the widow, biblically the widow, the orphan, and the foreigner. So those are some characteristics of what a prophet looks like, particularly in our biblical tradition. So. As pastors, if you were in church last week, I suggested the idea that pastors have three hats, right? Pastor, priest, which is kind of us on our Sunday with our robes. Pastor being that pastoral, that loving presence, and then prophet. And sometimes those are in tension, because we might, in a real concrete way, we might speak a word, maybe in a sermon or somewhere else, that's prophetic. Talking about healthcare, for example, in our country, and then go to the hospital with someone who thinks differently about that, and now our pastoral hat's on, and there's tension now because they didn't agree with what we said from the pulpit, and we're always living in that tension, but we're not the only ones who have to wrestle with that, right?
So all Christians have to wrestle with wearing those three hats all the time, being a compassionate person in the world, being a person who mediates God's grace as a priest, the priesthood of all believers, and also one who is willing to live boldly and to step into a prophetic role when needed, when necessary.
Which is especially challenging in some ways and these are broad strokes, but for a church like Montview, where a lot of us are already, I've been using this phrase lately, the halls of power. We're already in those places of power, and so often the prophet is speaking into those halls of power, critiquing them and showing where they're falling short. But a lot of us have a lot to lose if the systems change. But our faith, if we're going to follow Jesus, is going to always be measured by our ability to step back and say, so take healthcare again, or immigration, or any of the political hot spots. How is this impacting the poorest among us?
The ones who have no voice.
Right.
Because we have voice and vote.
So that's we always have to have that if we're going to play that. We're on the hook for that. Again, it's not about us so much as those on the outside.
Yeah.
It's a challenge.
It's a challenge. So a prophet, a modern day prophet, is one who raises our attention and awareness to an issue or to a population of people who have no voice or have little voice, and expands our view of the world, expands our vision of God and what the kingdom of God is. So let's introduce, there's a video that we want you to watch. It was part of a TED Talk, I believe, and it's a young poet named Jamila Liscott, and she's incredible. And I think she was the winner of the Slam Poet Championship at one of those years, and she's on a TED Talk. So it's a 5-minute clip. We want you to watch it.
Today, a baffled lady observed the shell where my soul dwells and announced that I'm articulate. Which means that when it comes to enunciation and diction, I don't even think of it because I'm articulate. So when my professor asks a question and my answer is tainted with the connotation of urbanized suggestion, there's no misdirected intention. Pay attention because I'm articulate. So when my father asks, what kind of thing is this? My articulate answer never goes amiss. I say, Father, this is the impending problem at hand, and when I'm on the block, I switch it up just because I can. So when my boy says, what's good with you, son? I say, I just fall out with them people, but I done. And sometimes in class, I might pause the intellectual sound and flow to ask, yo, why these books never be about my peoples? Yes, I have decided to treat all three of my languages as equal because I'm articulate. But who controls articulation? Because the English language is a multifaceted oration subject to indefinite transformation. Now you may think that it is ignorant to speak broken English, but I'm here to tell you that even articulate Americans sound foolish to the British. So when my professor comes on the block and says hello, I stop him and say, no, you're being inarticulate. The proper way is to say what's good. Now, you may think that's too hood. That's not cool. But I'm here to tell you that even our language has rules. So when mommy mocks me and says, y'all be mad going to the store, I say, mommy, no, that sentence is not following the law. Never does the word mad go before a present participle. That's simply the principle of this English. If I had the vocal capacity, I would sing this from every mountaintop, every suburbia, and every hood. Because the only God of language is the one recorded in the genesis of this world, saying it is good, so I may not always come before you with excellency of speech, but do not judge me by my language and assume that I'm too ignorant to teach, because I speak 3 tongues. One for each, home, school, and friends. I'm a trilingual orator. Sometimes I'm consistent with my language now and switch it up so I don't bore later. Sometimes I fight back 2 tongues while I use the other one in the classroom, and when I mistakenly mix them up, I feel crazy like I'm cooking in the bathroom. I know that I had to borrow your language because mine was stolen. But you can't expect me to speak your history wholly while mine is broken. These words are spoken by someone who is simply fed up with the Eurocentric ideals of this season. And the reason I speak a composite version of your language is because mine was raped away along with my history. I speak broken English so the profusing gashes can remind us that our current state is not a mystery. I'm so tired of the negative images that are driving my people mad. So unless you've seen it rob a bank, stop calling my hair bad. I'm so sick of this nonsensical racial disparity. So don't call it good unless your hair is known for donating to charity as much as has been raped away from our people. How can you expect me to treat their imprint on your language as anything less than equal? Let there be no confusion. Let there be no hesitation. This is not a promotion of ignorance. This is a linguistic celebration. That's why I put trilingual on my last job application. I can help to diversify your consumer market is all I wanted them to know. When they call me for the interview, I'll be more than happy to show that I can say what's good, what's agwan, and of course, hello. Because I'm articulate. Thank you.
Once you're done with the video, here's some questions to explore. This is what we do. If you're new to supper clubs, we give you questions at the end of each of these videos. So the first one would be to share an experience of someone who's been prophetic in your life. So, and that could be somebody famous. It could, you heard the MLK's "I Have a Dream" speech, and that changed your life. But it could be your grandmother too, who said something or did something or modeled something. So share a personal experience.
Could be you.
Oh, well, clearly me. Clearly.
A great sermon. Change your life.
Clearly. What's the second one?
Second one is place where it's hard to be prophetic, and maybe that's your workplace, maybe that's in a family, extended family at Thanksgiving, but a place that it's hard to be prophetic in what you believe to be true.
You have something to lose, either in work or in a family. You're going to strain a relationship. How do you do that from a place of love? Place of love. There it is. It's really tricky.
And the third point or question is talk about the video, and maybe you start there. Maybe that's a place you start after you watch it. But that's up to you. Talk about what her poem does to you and how it moves you. All right. Okay, is that it?
I think we're good.
All right.
Have a great time.
Good night. Have a great time. We'll see you next month.